So this morning we're heading out to check traps. I'm off this week because it's Christmas week. So I'm trapping out in my truck again, a little bit more mobile. And I'm doing something a bit different just because I had a lot of people contacting me, and I've had some issues with some of my bigger properties. I lost a couple of big properties that were, 1,000, 1,200 acres. In one case, they were older folks, and they just couldn't keep up the farm, and they ended up selling it and moving closer to town or into town. And on another case, there was a death, and the farm rolled to children. Children didn't want to have anything to do with the farm, and they basically sold it. Chopped it up into pieces and sold it is what they actually did. And so that's a couple thousand acres, a couple of big farms that I had. But I have a lot of these small little farms where it's 150 acres or less. And so that's what I'm doing this week, is I'm trapping a little bit less rural, a little bit more to some small towns. And by less rural, I'm talking towns that are 2,000 people. But a little bit more less rural, and I'm picking up on these little farms, like 150 here, 150 there, 150 here, 100 there, whatever it is. And I've got several of them set up. This is the first farm I'm headed to now. This will be check day number 2 on this first farm. Everything else, it's check day 1. And I think I have, 4 farms set up. And the most traps I have on any place is 5. Generally, I have around 4 or 5, maybe 3 on a couple places set up. I have one farm I'm only going to put 2 traps on, I think. So that's what I'm doing. A little bit different, but you can still catch fur on these smaller farms. And if they're spread out, you're in different animal groups all the time. So they can be really productive if you just do, a few traps here, drive 6 miles, few traps there, drive 10 miles, few traps here, drive 6 miles, few traps there. You just kind of make a little loop out of it. At least that's what I do. The only downside is you will catch dogs sometimes, a little bit more frequently than in the rural areas or super rural areas. But honestly, I've been catching dogs in the super rural areas. I just don't know that it really matters anymore. Everybody's just letting their dogs run loose. So we're heading off, checking some traps. And I know in this first little farm, because the farmer's already called me, that we have a couple coyotes, because he told me he saw them out in his field bouncing around. So we're off to a good start, and we'll take you with us this morning. Okay, so this is check day 2 on this farm, and I think this farm is like 120 acres, 100, something like that, give or take. And I got 5 sets on this place, just because it's got places to put 5 decent sets in. The farmer, he runs around, the landowner, he runs around and checks his cows. And just to give you an idea of where I am, you can see back over there is his house, and he's got these fields that run across the top of the hill, valley down there, and then there's more fields, as you can see, that run back over here. This place behind me, this is the actual property line. The place behind me is like, 1,500 acres, but I do not have permission to trap over there. But there's lots of fields over there, and these coyotes are just running back and forth. There was a spot here, right here, you can see where the critters are going underneath the fence. You can actually see some coyote fur there. Obviously, we're not allowed to hang a snare off the fence. So, and then there's some more fur hanging right here off of that, if you can see. Right there's some more fur. So these coyotes are going underneath the fence here. They're running through this field. The landowner sees them running through this field. He shoots at them every time he sees them. So I put 2 sets, one right down there and one right here along this fence. These coyotes are obviously traveling the fence. They're going underneath the fence here, going into that big field, going into these other fields, looking for prey and whatever. And here is the circle of this first catch we had. Now the landowner dispatched these before I got here, which personally I don't really care about. He shot them both in the head with a 22, which is, you know, he texted me and said, hey, when will you get here? And I said it'll be at least an hour. And he's like, well, I'll just take care of them. How do you do it? I told him, and he just went ahead and did it. He actually threw them in his side by side and had them both basically back at the house for me, which is great. I know some people get finicky about that, but I don't care. It saves me from having to do it. All I got to do is show up, get the coyotes, reset the traps, and move on. Plus, it makes the landowner feel like he's part of the process. I mean, he doesn't want these critters here. They're eating his livestock. He just doesn't want them. And it makes him feel like, you know, he's doing his part, not just letting you trap out here, but he's doing his part. And if some landowner wants to do it, let him do it. I mean, I just think guys are getting finicky about that for no reason. It builds rapport, makes them feel involved, makes them feel, you know, like they're part of the process. So, plus it saves you from having to shoot the animal. The only thing that, I guess some people are like, well, yeah, but I wanted to show up and see it and shoot some pictures or video. I could care less about that. I've caught enough coyotes in my day. Makes no difference to me. So, so here's the catch circle. I'm going to reset this, and then I'll show you the remake. And then the second coyote is, I don't know if you can see, but there's a cross fence right there with a gate. And I'll show you that when I get up there. That's where the second coyote is. So they're not very far apart. 150 yards maybe? I don't know, something like that. Okay, so here's the remake. Nothing that you guys haven't seen before. Redid the dirt hole. Threw a little bit of grass just on the back side of it that was out of here, just to give it a little bit more of a backing, because he destroyed a lot of the backing. Rebedded the trap. Different bait, different lure, and then I put a little bit of sheep's wool. You can kind of see it down in the hole, just to give them something to see. I did not use sheep's wool here last time, something different. And I had a really good question this week, or comment on one of my videos, about why I change bait and lure. Why, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? I totally agree with that. Here's my reasoning though on why I do this. So there's been studies, specifically coming from out west, where they're going after these coyotes, and where they're trying to poison them, they're trying to do all these different things to get them. And when a coyote becomes used to a certain smell, for example, let's say hypothetically that there was two coyotes here. This was a male that was caught in here. Let's say there was a female with him, and she doesn't get caught. But she smells that smell that's in the hole. I don't know, maybe let's say it's Hiawatha Valley, and she smells that, and she smells whatever lures here, and he gets caught, and there's all this rigmarole going on. There's all this stuff. She gets excited. She doesn't know what's going on. He's doing his thing. You know how they'll bite at the trap, and they'll kind of do their little whine and all the other stuff that they do, and she can't figure out what's going on, and eventually she leaves him. Well, let's say she hooks up again with another coyote, and the trapper's using Hiawatha Valley, and let's say something like that happens again. She doesn't get caught, but this other coyote does, and now that's twice that she has smelled Hiawatha Valley, and now she's starting to associate Hiawatha Valley with something not so good, right? Now, I'm no wildlife biologist, I'm no scientist, but I could conceivably see where that is, you know, that can hold true. I mean, just think about all the times you've shot at coyotes, and then, you know, now coyotes associate you with danger, and every time they see you, they run, right? Well, they've done these studies out west where they've actually figured out that these coyotes can associate certain smells and certain things with danger, and then they avoid those things. And not only do they avoid them, but they teach their pups to avoid them. So why would I not want to change things up just to be safe, just to be certain? I don't know how true that is. I don't know how accurate it is. Makes sense to me logically. But with so many good baits on the market, why not just change it up? Doesn't hurt you. And I love Hiawatha Valley, probably my favorite bait, but there's lots of other good baits that I catch lots of coyotes on. So why not change it up and just to be safe and give them something that's different. I know my dog at home, I mean, you give her a different bone, you give her a different toy, you give her something different, she's all excited. I think coyotes are the same. They don't want to see the same thing all the time. Give them something different, different smells, different whatever. They're a little bit more interested in them. So that's why I do it. Just, you know, why do it? All right, here's the remake of this T-bone. And you can see there's a bit of a catch circle here, but it's funny. So I have two sets, one here and one right over there. And then right down there, I have one to the right of the trail and one to the left of the trail. The traps that made catches that were, I don't know, 150 yards apart, whatever it is here, but they were both the traps that were on the west side of the trail. In other words, the farthest west trap. So when I had two, I had one a little bit farther to the west, and one a little bit farther to the east, and there's probably, down there's probably, I don't know, 30, 35 yards in between them, and here there's, I don't know, maybe 20 yards in between them because they're both on this sides of the gate. But what's funny is it was both of the west side traps that made the catch. One was a dirt hole, one was a T-bone. So my question is, does that mean anything? Does that not mean anything? Does that matter? Does it not matter? And the answer is, just throwing this out there, both of those west side traps, the wind direction comes from the west. So in other words, the wind was blowing east to west, taking that scent, pushing it through that field, pushing it across that trail. I think windage is important, and a lot of people don't think about the windage, but that's just, I'm not saying that's what it was, just throwing that out there for something to think about. And over time, I consistently see that over time, where if you're playing the windage, you're going to increase your catches. So here's the remake. I piled up a bunch of grass on that T-bone. Right there, you can see the T-bone just kind of buried underneath there. Put a punch hole right there. There's a punch hole on that side. There's my trap right in there. I'm using this clod of grass here to help guide that I did not dig out. Just kind of wedge the trap in between there. And that's it. I mean, basically kind of what I'm mimicking here is obviously something buried a bone there. It's got something good on it. There's all kinds of good smells here. I know I had a phone call with another landowner that I'm going to go to see today, and he originally had talked to me a couple weeks ago about doing some trapping over on his place because he was losing livestock, and then he bought guard geese, 2 of them, and they're like, yeah, we're going to give these guard geese a try. And then he calls me last night and said, hey, something ate our guard geese. So now he wants some trapping done down there. So I'm going to head down there maybe later today and check out that place. But it was funny in his story. He found one of his guard geese, and he was following feathers, took it out of his barnyard, drug it down into the woods, and he found it, or what was left of it, and it was buried and it was covered up just like this. And he's like, what do you think that was? And I said, I think that was probably a bobcat, and here's why. And I explained it to him. So that's kind of what I'm mimicking here with this T-bone. I'm mimicking a bobcat or a coyote that has, although coyotes don't usually do that, but sometimes they will. Basically making a debris pile and covering up something good. So that's kind of what I'm mimicking here. So I'm putting out traps on new pieces of property that I've never actually been to before this week. So where I am is I'm on smaller pieces of property really this week. I got one more one big one I think I'm gonna set up tomorrow, but I've got like 8 properties I'm trying to do this week, and they're all pretty small, like 100 acres. So where I am is I'm in this drainage. You can see there's drainage that comes out of here, and there's a farm road that comes down here, and then a farm road that goes up there. And if you look down into this drainage, I'm not going to walk down through there, but you can see where all the erosion and everything, and it's kind of thick and brambles and stuff in there. Anyway, there's about 5 dead sheep carcasses. Now they're somewhat old, several weeks old, not, you know, like year old or 6 months old, but in the last 8 weeks. And what's happening is the farmer had sheep in here, and something, probably coyotes, I'm assuming, but something was eating his sheep. So he lost like 5 sheep in the course of about a month, a little over a month. And so what I did is I got in here, started looking around, and it's a relatively small field, piece of property. You can see all these cedars and stuff up in here, and then up on the top there's like all that sage grass where the sheep have been grazing. And I have a set up at the top there, two traps up there along the fence on an outside corner. And then down here there's this little 2-track that runs down through here, but this is where all the bone piles are. This is where it looks like they're dragging all the sheep and eating them down in here and scattering things around. So I went ahead and put a couple sets down here. Here is one. I found some of this sheep's wool that's down in here that's just left, and I kind of scattered it around to kind of attract some attention. And I put in a double dirt hole right here, jammed some of the sheep's wool down in the hole, put bait and lure in one hole, put just sheep's wool in the other hole, and that's all I did. And then over here I put in a T-bone, because whatever's doing this is obviously used to getting these sheep. So there's this piece of sheep hide that was here, so I'm just going to use that and let it be. And then right over here you can see right up underneath there, I got a T-bone in there, and I've got it all covered up with grass and leaves and some dirt that was left over from the hole, and I made it look like something had put it there and covered it up and was trying to hide it. Got my trap out there in the front, put a punch hole on each side, put some lure, 2 different kinds of lure on each side, some bait down in the T-bone, and that's it. And they're just right off this 2-track, and they're right up this drainage where it looks like everything is coming up out of there, following this drainage down, and then it opens up into these 2 big valleys along the creeks. And it looks like, and everything up there and all down the side is where the farmer's got some sheep, but those sheep are closer to his house, and he brings them in at night now just because everything's eating them. But this was his farthest field that was away from the house, and this is where he was losing them like every few days. So we're gonna see if we can't pick up some coyotes here for this guy.